Now, a recent Canadian study out, and I mean, filtered towards Canada because I'm a Canadian and I see that as my primary mission field. I don't know the circumstances and readily admit, but I don't really know what the church is like in Uganda. I've never been to Uganda. And I don't know what church leadership is like in Uganda. And I know that across countries in Africa like that, sometimes people just don't have Bibles accessible. I wish that this global we or what we are doing kind of is a little print of mine said, put the cookies down on the bottom shelf where people can get at them. And I know that as I communicate or what I want to communicate, sometimes it's like, oh, be TMI there. Perhaps that's true. I will entertain that thought. It could well be true. But at the same time, I think the things we're going to cover here are really important. Because this study, Canadian study done a couple of years back by an acquaintance of mine and a friend, Vic Heemstuft, who's a high quality guy who always does really solid work about what they call significant church. They gathered together a bunch of denominations and said, what are we going to do with this small church? And then they have to enter into this question of what is a small church? And small is a relative term. A small church in some places could be so that hundreds of people meet in the open air location. They settled in on a definition of 150. I don't think that's small enough. It's impossible to know with certainty except in individual studies and the data that is gathered together for a particular study. But I know that approximately 7 out of 10 churches in North America had fewer than 100 participants in the room last Sunday. 7 out of 10. So if we're setting the bar at 150, we're moving way up above that typical medium church, middle-sized church. And then if we look at the most frequent attendance amongst all of the churches, it's good to lay out the stats all in a long line. You have the mega churches over here that the ones that get the attention because they can afford personnel to do it. Larger churches have the capacity to hire a few people, even just one, to kind of manage that division of the ministry. Ordinary churches simply don't have that. The majority, I will say, haven't got solid stack on this yet, but the majority, I am confident, of the leaders in those ordinary churches at 100 or fewer are not fully paid. They may work full time, but subsidize themselves by moonlighting another job or having a spouse who brings them income into the family. But they don't have a living wage. And you say hire a media person? No, that's just not a possibility. But right now, I'm sitting in I think it's about 10 by 12 room. Absolutely behind me is not brown. It's cool. Okay, this is what they call a green screen effect. And this is a too old phone to be time. I paid probably $40 for it. If it's this is a little higher end than just ordinary, but this is the laptop you probably possess. I built this table a little differently. I've got a couple of lights that can buy those relatively cheap as old school lights. It's important to have lighting, but even facing the window, there is a window over there. And even if I face the window with the camera coming this way, that natural light equally as good as the light that I got there, but the light I got there will also work, or when I'm recording at times when the sun is down and so on. It's so easy to put information out to people. But the first time you do it, you're scared. And it's really hard to hit record. And I use some software with I'm broadcasting with free software right now. It's called Open Broadcasting System, and exhibit thing across the bottom. It's called the bottom third, and the text changes on that. And so it's a little bit of work to learn it, but a whole lot less work than it does to the money order that the praise of God that you learn your Bible college that nobody ever asked you about. It's amazing what is possible for us. But I think we've got caught up in so many peripherals, we've forgot what it's like to be ordinary. And many people are discouraged that they're ordinary. And I'm saying to you that there are advantages to ordinary churches. So we're going to get into that today. I think that one of the things that churches often do is they get caught up in all kinds of unnecessary things and don't pay attention to what we called last week the home pool. And a home pool is simply people who say, this church is my church home. Last week we covered the fact that you probably never get them all assembled in one place at one time. If you have a kind of an ordinary church in crack, you had 50 people there today and 50 people there last Sunday and 50 people there the week before. I can't understand the numbers for your situation, but you can, and we've talked about this. That is not the same as 60 humans. And that number, that attendance number, while it's a very useful generalization number, it's not the right number because we need to know about the people myth. So we're going to delve into this as we go here. And I'm going to publish all these findings in the Ordinary Church Feedback. I might change the title, haven't decided yet. But it's kind of going to look like that. And then there are going to be other adjunct things that just for the price of the books, which would be around $20. It'll give you everything and software and worksheets and stuff. It'll give you more than you'll ever use if I get to build it all out, which I hope to do over the next little while. So, if you were paying attention last week, I asked you in the conclusion, the so what section that we always get to make a list in your mind of who was there last week and who was not there. The chances are that you will make mistakes, and you should ask a friend, a spouse, a decent would they, or you missed the so-and-so family. Who was that individual person that always did a kind of that? Oh, wait a minute, they went there last Sunday, they were there the week before. How's that lady? She's a single mom, but I think she lose the kid. Maybe she's not single. Maybe she leaves the kids with her boyfriend. See, it's always illustrated by the names, not by the numbers. And those names all matter. The name is the gateway to the person. You know that the name is the sweetest sound that you're ever hear. If you're on home, you learn it. One of the first things that you've learned as a child, and it gets to you like some people change the name, and that's a difficult thing to do. It's difficult. People will know you by your old name, and even to change what's going on in your mind. Now, some of the people that if you did make that list, you missed some people. Guaranteed. You missed some people. Some of them really bother you because one of them is somebody who you know is addicted to something or other, and they're always a bit erratic, and they'll be maybe, so you notice that person. But you might not notice the quiet, maybe just a lovely little 80-year-old baby who never sings the songs because he can't sing this contemporary music. She wants to go back the old hymns. Like she'll call her at you and she'll sit there and smile, and when you feel spawned, you maybe feel spawned. But she has to go down the aisle in her walker. She's eating a mess. She's eating not paying attention. So you've got all this cacophony of sounds, of moans, not a number. I want to get off the number and onto the moans. Now, what on earth are you going to do? Well, you can expect to be bad at this before you get good at it. I got minimal training in this as I went along. I got a tap myself kind of average at it. But this whole business of dealing with the ceilings is what the New Testament emphasizes. It emphasizes our relationships much more than it emphasizes theological constructs. And you can expect to be bad at it before you get good at it. And you will get good at it if you keep going in the right direction on it and keep fine-tuning your capacity. It's really useful to have some kind of feedback mechanism to help you with your capacity. But, even if you're just a soul leader of the church and you don't feel you've done enough to pour, you can still be good at that. So I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I won't call it an exposition, but I'm going to expose you to a passage of scripture that I think is important for everybody in your home pool. Everybody, not just elders, not just deacons, not just Sunday school keepers, not just small group leaders, certainly not just and a part-time paid students that you might have for the summer or something like that. Everybody needs to understand what Paul was telling this church, a very young church, full of ordinary people who had not been believers very long. None of them had been to Bible college. Nobody even could spell the word Bible college at that point in time. Now, there's 4 verses in this passage, and we're going to go through them, not exactly word for word, but concept per concept. First of all, if you look it up, for Thessalonians 5, and we ask you, it says in verse 12, this is, we implore you, we the yearning behind it. It's not just a mere request. We ask you, brothers, and if you read into an international version, it will say brothers and sisters, because brother isn't a term for males, and the Bible is a term for siamese. We ask you, brother, to respect those who labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admire you. So these are the people who are over you. Typically we call pastor. Sadly, we have expectations of the pastors that belong to everybody in the church. Everybody. If everybody does what we're going to talk about today, you're going to think you got a really good pastor. If nobody does it, or very few, you're going to think you got a really bad pastor. It's got nothing to do with the pastor. You might call him an elder in some context. It might have other words. I like to use the term prime leader because it just demeritizes anybody who's at the top of the food chain. Defend those who labor, and the word is for hard labor, tiring labor, exhausting labor among you, are over you in the Lord. That's very important. They're over you. They are responsible as overseers, as supervisors. Now, the major concept of this overseer is servant, slave in the New Testament, but then still other people who are they're out in front of you, whatever you want to call them. So we ask you to respect, lift them up high, esteem them, as they said in verse 3, very highly in love because of their work, not because of their history, not because of their title, but because of this hard work of leading a congregation and getting everybody to do what they're supposed to do. And, this is a lot worse than coaching in the soccer team with a bunch of 6-year-olds that kick the ball in the wrong direction and all glob around the ball. And I could never do that. I'd yell at the kids. I couldn't help myself. But I've never done it. Never will do it. Nope, not good to do that. But these are the people who you are to place in this special position. And they may not be doing it well, and they may frustrate you. Then you might want to murder them and love them at the same time. And you can help them get better at it if you just keep working with them and do what we're going to see later on. Because those pardon leaders need the emperors, the ordinary people in the church as well. And be at peace among yourselves. This is one of the things that is so important. That when you get agitated, and you probably will get agitated because everything won't line up the way you think it could line up, you've got to find a way to calm your spirit. One of the best ways to calm your spirit is you get out in nature. Your brain will settle down if you go for a walk in nature, in the woods, down that path by the river. I've got woods and river around me. I'm very fortunate. But you've got to get out somewhere where there aren't right angles that jangle the mind. Something that's natural, and it will lower the temperature in your brain, if it were. Paul says, as I was esteem them very highly, this benefit category. The word to esteem it, consider, esteem, or count it, hold them in high regard, even if they don't deserve it, because of their work. Now, they don't earn their way with stuff, but you've still got to give them the esteem that the Bible says to do them. That's not it. That's not it. And then it goes on, verse 14, we urge you, brothers, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with them all. Now, this is the second category. We urge you who? Not you, leader. You, everybody. You brothers and sisters. The entire set of recipients in Thessalonica, which were the people who were relatively new believers. It's a new concept for them. You got three types of people to deal with, and this is absolutely critical that we teach everybody. And this, to put somebody felt it means you got to put and repeat, and they put again, and then repeat, and they're going to forget. Just like it amazes me when a player gets to first base, the first base coach says there's 2 out. It's like, we've got this paid millions of dollars to count to 3. But he needs the reminder. And it's kind of a metaphor for life. Everybody needs to be reminded about these 2 people that are contained in this verse. And you got to be patient with them all, but they're different people. Okay, so he sets the standard. We're going to come back to that. He sets the standard in verse 15. See to it that no one reproves anyone evil for evil, but to be and love one another, do good to one another. So this second category, not the leadership category, but the second layer category, 2 potential people, but to be like an umpire and to be the example before the people, because this is how we're going to evaluate on the individual. So, 2 categories, those who are over you, or the rest of it. So, there's a current thing, if you see something going wrong, if you see something, say something. Yeah, well, in the church, you have a responsibility if you see something, say something. It doesn't mean blast it over the PA system. It doesn't mean blast it over, but accept the responsibility as a person in the church. This is my family. And just like if you saw somebody else's 3-year-old going to run out on the road, you would say, oh boy, that's bad, that bank. You're going to go and grab that 3-year-old. And that's the kind of responsibility which we know how to take with little people, and be sure you have that responsibility. Now you've got to look for the evidences of how to treat the people. Got to get to that. Could I come back and do it next week or not? Give it some feedback. Let me know that, if we're in the room, I have a few nodding heads or eyes glazing over, but we're not with those 20 people in the room here. So you've got to learn the correct responses to the people. Now, reflections, coming back to it, you've got to warn the idle, encourage the disheartened, help the weak. There are 3 very different people, or the 3 people in different phases of their lives. And he does 3 different people and 3 different responses. So, it's the only tool you have is a hammer. Everything looks like a nail. It's an old adage, and it's true. And if you're really good at one thing, you think that everybody needs that one thing naturally. And it may be true that some people need it more than the other guy with the hammer. But if you've got the ranks, then you've got to work together and be at peace with each other as you're doing. 3 different people, 3 different tastes. Okay. The aisle. No 30 parent. I got this out of Brent. Greg, this is kind of like a video of some coming where everybody's marching and the one guy goes off on his own. You stepped out of formation. And it keeps walking. This person needs to be warned. I like to see you to pick on the butt. Okay, so if they're idle, maybe they're lazy, they're not paying attention, they're out of ranks, they're out of formation. Now, most of in the church right now, in one sense or another, if they're not following through on this instruction from Paul to everybody, then in fact, Everybody don't want to. But everybody in the crowd on a given week doesn't need the same level of attention. So these are things that are individualized. These are things that cannot be done totally effectively in a sermon because you have to coach them with all the other people in mind. And if you're resting on sermons or lessons to make this happen, you're going to fail. That's going to fail. The idle person who needs a warning. Then there's the disheartened person. It comes that just out there. We used to be chocolate small folds. We do trunk. They're not defiant. They're just empty. It can be empty for other reasons. But if you're one empty person, you just break them. This person needs an arm on the shoulder. He's to say, remember when you had the tank full of gas? Tell me about a time when you felt the most fulfilled, and you can draw them back to a reality that perhaps they've forgotten. No, some people have to school to do this. Some people pay big part to say to the counselor. Need a church member who knows how to be a friend who cares. And it's the third category Paul had, where he said the weak have just no strength. I know, assume that this is not a choice they make you to be lazy, but it's a condition where they can't do it. As recall, many years ago now, I had a friend, their wife, him totally unexpected. He didn't know the marriage was about to break up. And he was in such a dumpster. And I'd go and sleep in his house with him all the night, one night, with the week, and he would have the week's worth of dishes piled up. There would be disgusting, unscraped dishes. And I'd stand there and I'd wash his dishes. And I had tears running down my face, full of grief over my friend who he got out of the skunk there and moved on to be quite significant in life. Then it wasn't a total failure, but he was really bound. And this people are weak sometimes to grieve like he was, sometimes to fit, and I've been there. Sometimes they're just tired. Sometimes they're old, like I am. I'm finding it really hard as I get older to keep up the same pace. So I can't keep up the same pace, I know that. But very often, the weak people just have nobody to show them the way. Nobody giving them the personalized training. There's no such thing as a training class that will work overall. This won't work unless they're able to take it and individualize what I'm doing right now. Because this has to be a one size fits all. Then because there's nobody that besides my little camera here. Warn them. All you can do is punish them and give them a program. I don't need somebody with to protect them, to support them, to help them. And if you get it wrong, you'll damage them. They're a quitter. This was guy who's going to offer you so much, so everybody say this court. They say, oh, I did such a good job. No, you didn't. You're telling you about this. He just wants to back out. If you encourage the idle, the debtor's line, they'll say, oh, I'm doing so well. You said it, I'm so gifted. And I do something we need to dwell on what's positive about people. But and then one situation where a couple quit on me, and I had me trying to get it right, and I just had given them too much encouragement because their thing were, well, you told us we were so good and so gifted. Why are you rejecting us now? I never did reject them, but that's what I found. It's difficult to get this right. And if you encourage the person who's really jerked out of line, they're also scared of lying and saying, look, I'm so good. And a particular there's a true person to the position of leadership. Well, I'm a superintendent of X, Y, Z. If you encourage that idle person, not going to help. And if you double the encouragement, it's getting to do more. Now, if you try to corrupt that weak person and drag him, might break on you. You gotta click him by the horn, and piece by piece, preach and repeat, repeat and repeat over and over again. And eventually some of it will sink in, some of it will not. But you've got all these people in your church. So we come back to the people who are missing. Where you'll always have people missing in your church. And if a person is not there on Sunday, they don't need a phone call to say, where were you? Well, some of them might. But you need to measure it back to the parishioners and give them the responsiveness they need. And, some of the people you Church going to feel passive. You go do it. No. Remember who this is responsibility of? An ordinary church. A church without the media flare. No smoke machine, no new LED lights, no flashing sign outside that says just ordinary people. Ordinary people have the responsibility to the doctors. I don't know who's watching it, but you own this for yourself and learn how to do it and demonstrate it. Have you passed it on? Are you recognizing how important it is? This isn't a down to the ordinary church act because a prime leader or elder can have the sense that he knows everybody, probably hasn't, but I'm certainly not at any level of depth, but have the sense that everybody in this crowd is responsible for all of this. Well, not tell you. So it comes back to be the attendance speaker. If the auditorium look empty and all you see is the pews, and so you see, well, you had a lot of the Wood family there this week, then no God knows it's a man. An empty seat doesn't help here. So how are you going to find out where they're at? You find out where a person's at by asking questions. I'm not going to give you a whole list of them here, but in the resources I'm creating, I intend to give you a whole bunch of questions you can learn to build a library out of it. To do these and ask people and find out how to do it. That's what's called for a conversation, a two-way conversation. If you come down heavy on people, they're likely to not tell you the truth. And so, if you say, I'm from them, most people are going to say, oh no, or well, I just very counted people one at a time. Numerically matters, but counting the means, counting what's in there in that personhood, that's how love will win and how love will find out. So he goes on to say, be patient with everyone. That's attached to all those three people. So it's not a fourth instruction, it's an umbrella instruction for the idle, the disheartened, and the weak. And it will take time. And it is a governor for all the others. It isn't a matter of, I'm going to talk to you twice and then give up on you. And if you don't have the right perspective, any kind of clearly to gears with a script, it is going to feel like pressure to them and they're likely not to respond. I better move on. I don't want to be guilty of TMI. The first group, the leaders, monitor and measure the second group. And now you got to teach people that when you actually have this uncomfortable conversation with somebody, they just might butt you. And so, yeah, well, you're not so perfect yourself. And so Paul says, dumb. People appear that evil for evil and do the good, right thing anyway. And you, if you're in a Christ group, there's pastor, prime leader, elder, whatever they want to call you, let's just be so sad. You got to be the demonstration of this for others. You got to not be hiding. No, you got to be looking people in the eye and caring for people. Do the right thing. And if they attack you, don't sidestep them and fire them just because of that. Be patient with all. Because the leader is part of the whole group. And some weeks it may be that you two or I know are different or weak. Nobody's went out the front and has the right to have people consuming. We're all just pilgrims on the same pathway. You know, to have an ordinary church, those kind of below that midline, whatever in midline. It's the smallest set of feelings. So you can deal with them more generically, organically, individually. A larger church has no alternative but to create separate divisions for people, and we're going to talk about that going forward. Own people and get software and organized charts and so on. That might create a bigger crowd, but it will also create a leaky crowd where people said, yeah, it was really good. I loved that church at first because the preaching was off the charts good. But I found that I never got to know anybody. I had nobody follow up on me. I have talked to so many people over the years who gone to a church and wandered away from the church. Did it follow up? No, not at all. You know, if you're just checking boxes and trying to get people into a particular profile, it's not really human. We have the advantage of being what everybody should be. So, who's in there? Who's not in there? This week, this month, whatever it been. Clear about that. And who's willing to jump in and help? So I asked the last week, can somebody say, where? The people are here, the people are there. People go and ask for the Holy Spirit to bring to your mind one person on that list. Then deal with them. Ask them in. Are they idle? Are they disheartened? Are they weak? But then go and have a conversation with them and find out. And choose, after you've had the conversation, choose how you're going to deal with them. Don't go in with your guns blazing. I have a term that I call watch reader. And I hope that you will, in your church, develop a watch reader with a circle of people that they notice. We will talk about this much more going forward. But if you're a prime leader, LA is leave the slide there, the watch reader. What has to happen is A's has got to be the example. And B watches that, be the example. The way it'll move around the congregation before and after the meeting, and not being a fellow well met, but actually being there, stopping, looking people in the eye, listening carefully to what they're saying in the words, but what they're saying in the mood. You got to get good. And if you can get B to pay attention to what you're doing, the B is going to see more. And if you review them after, did you notice that the person said, probably? So what do you think probably meant? And they'll stop and say, probably meant probably not. And so on, and figure out what's going on here. And then you find that person who's elevating their own attitude and they're going to do it. Well, you was there to watch, you stand back and say, oh my goodness. They moved the hammer when all that person used was a fine paintbrush. And so you go back and you say to B, well, tell me what I'm cold or anything. So, did you notice this, the other thing? And so you kind of fine tune them, back and forth, patient with them, back and forth until they get it right. And then when they finally get it right, you kind of deputize them to find somebody else to let them do it and so on. It's not that difficult, but it's that important that we develop a church that does all of this. I have so much more to say. I have overtime, but I hope that you can, if you didn't like the part of it, do whatever, but pass it on. And you could just take this one video and pass it on. If you're a prime leader in the church and you have typically a board, you can pass it on to them and encourage them to watch it with you, not by themselves because they probably won't. But say, can I get you over to my house for about an hour? Or can I come to your house and you had access to YouTube, right? Okay, so can we watch a YouTube video together and then have a bit of a discussion, have a prayer time about it? Most of them are going to say yes, and go and do that, and it will make the difference here. Why not get an inkling? Why not get all the resources put together? I'm going to give you more help. But now and then, just do something. Just do something, and God will bless you if we do.